in the last 12 months, there have been significant developments. And I think what is more significant is the developments have been in areas of improvement. So it's not necessarily about doing more things, but it's being able to do things better, which has been the primary focus of almost all the players. And while we just talked about this last week, that we'll do a year in review, but I think this week in review has become more important than the entire year, right? The kind of things which have come out from Google and OpenAI just towards the end of last week, and everybody else as well. So it's very interesting. Uh, we had floated just a kind of discussion guide on the topics we could cover. We don't necessarily need to cover all, and let's keep it sharp 1 hour. So by 11 o'clock, we will wrap up. So with that, the floor is open. Whoever wishes to go first, share their thoughts on what's been happening and what they see likely developments going forward in the next 1 year or so.
Youngest first?
Yeah, youngest first.
That sounds good. Yeah. So again, hello everyone. Again, it has been a really great year for year. So most of my predictions that I made in 29th May article, they have been correct. What we are seeing that LLMs have plateaued and groundbreaking improvements, they are unlikely. The reason that has been because there is no more public data. Again, LLMs have been built in on a principle of lossy compression, so that's why they haven't been able to generalize intelligence in a way that we have been expecting. We are seeing diminishing returns on pre-training. That is also amazing. And we are not seeing huge surprises that that the kind of where extremely publicized during last one year period. So we are not seeing any test time inference surprises now. Another piece that I had mentioned, that OpenAI has started faltering and Google has been steadily gaining ground, should overtake soon. Because of both combined research power that they have, the brains that they have, and because of trillion chips that they have been using their own custom TPUs, which OpenAI doesn't have access to. So this gives them significant leverage in this particular area. If you see something like for proof models such as VO2, they're already surpassing models such as Sora, which are used for video generation. So this is something amazing that has been happening. Another significant thing, so this is with respect to prediction, another significant thing, that language model training speed runs, they have already reached for 4 minutes from 45 minutes. That was 6 months ago. So people have been saying that compute will be the ultimate leverage. That hasn't been happening. People are using their ingenuity to reduce these computation speeds and make these computations more and more efficient. So that was another expectation that I had. Another piece that is in, again, this is more of a controversial opinion for the next year, is that for me, and again, this is my personal opinion, so please take it with a pinch of salt. Agents mean nothing, because what happens is that agents, the way they are mostly on decoder only kind of paradigm, where you're predicting the next token. And even if a single token goes wrong in your 1000 token length, then what that means is your entire 999 tokens are wrong. But what I am expecting, that these agents will be divided into two different pieces. Number one is intelligence and another one is tools. So intelligence will have large working knowledge repository, and they will be used as supporting mechanism. And that could be O1, that could be Cloud Sonnet 3.5, that could be Gemini Ultra 2.0, whichever that is. So, developers or whoever is building those, like, for example, nurses could use them to give a significant performance with respect to diagnosis compared to doctors. So it will elevate a particular developer or any human to a next level of intelligence. But with that, tools will be created which will be built with intelligence, and they will be completely automated. For an example, if you have generated a code and that works correct 100% of the time, why would you generate it again? What you would do is you would just store it in cache, and when the next condition happens, it should run automatically. So again, just to repeat, agents mean nothing. It is intelligence and tools, and that is how the paradigm is going to be in the next year. So comparing with, so again, I would like to finish it up with, an analogy to fire. So again, innovation of fire was a huge boon to humankind, but by default, we could only cook food and use them to keep predators away. But we were only able to use fire for metal casting, more innovation started happening from steam engines to heat exchangers to which actually propelled humanity to the next era. We are going to see something similar. You will use intelligence to build these tools, which will propel us into the next era. And that era begins now. So it has been a great year. Looking forward to another great year next year.
Good. Any other thoughts? Jay, what about you?
I'll go a little later, if it's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe we should first get the practitioners to talk a little bit.
Correct.
Santosh then.
Santosh, yes.
Actually, nothing much to add to what Omkar mentioned. Basically the same phenomena that we saw, right? The plateauing of the LLM, the performance, and one key thing is so far to get to keep up with the hype. The focus had been quite on generalizations, right? And I think from there to make it actually work and to address specific use cases, you have to kind of get into get the LLM do specific tasks very accurately. So from that perspective, we'll get back to fine tunings. We'll get back to kind of optimization of the the LLMs for specific tasks, specific domains, specific use cases, so to speak, right? So I think we are moving away from this big, large knowledge index approach to very specific focused LLMs in the future. I think we'll see plenty of them, coming this year, 2025, and that along with the agent approach, right, agentic approach, I think that will make a quite of a difference.
I think one interesting thing emerging is access to data. My personal belief is Google is advancing now because they have access to so much data. Their video model turned out better because they have all the YouTube videos. And in other areas as well. I think they're finally being able to tap into the databases they have. And this is an area where OpenAI could suffer because they don't have access to proprietary data and they're forced to source it from outside. So Meta has that advantage, Google has that advantage, Grok has that advantage of all the data from Twitter. OpenAI doesn't have. They may have enterprise data from Microsoft. So maybe that over a period of time, they'll just become an enterprise AI company. But that's just one perspective. How about some use cases? Where are we seeing already adoption and applications of AI in various fields? Would anybody like to talk about that?
So, Alok, Kamal here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe I can share my view on this one from my industry, which is, for people who don't know. So I'm primarily working in the energy utility domain, infrastructure, you can say, right? So compared to last year, definitely the level of awareness, interest is much more, right? But has that translated into some very high impact use case, within, at least my sphere of visibility? Unfortunately, not yet. Okay. At least in my company or people I work with, I don't see anyone coming back and telling me, hey, I solved this major problem using generative AI. Okay. Um, yes, traditional AI, machine learning and stuff, a lot of work is going on, right? Different use cases. And I talked about it in one of the session I did. Now, there are three use cases though, right? Where I see generative AI is being, we are beginning to use, okay? One is in general, communication, especially the written communication. I see an overall increase in the quality of communication that is coming through email or Word documents specifically, right? I think Omkar also said the guys who was English was really poor earlier. Now they also sound more, literate. Okay. But at the same time, I see many people just copying and pasting the output of, the chatbot. So I think people are learning how to incorporate it in their day-to-day communication. We have spent a lot of, I would say, effort in terms of training people on how to use Copilot, because that's the default chatbot available to us, okay, in Teams. So that's one big use case overall, right? Then there are two areas in which we have started projects, okay, and I think 25 is when I'll start seeing the application of those. One is for contact center AI. So we are trying to see how to augment, divert some of our the easier calls to a AI agent rather than a human agent. For example, someone just wants a duplicate bill, so that's a very simple request, and have AI identify that intent and have them serve it rather than channeling it to a human agent. And then gradually, as we learn, we get better. We handle more complex queries of our customers. So that, I think, that's a area which is ripe for disruption with generative AI. And in the last 1 year itself, or let's say last few week itself, I've seen the quality of voice, you know, exponentially becoming better suddenly. I mean, some of the experts here can talk about it, why it has become suddenly so better. But everyone is coming up with very realistic voice agents, right? And that's what we were playing yesterday only. We were playing all these agents as a team and see that, hey, let's make sure we achieve the same level of quality. The other area where I'm seeing a lot of interest, application, drive is the legal and regulatory department. Okay, I think they have really, started exploring it very, very seriously, because they have to work with very complex, large documents. And it's really helping them in terms of crafting new petitions, analyzing the impact of any amendment to the existing law. Okay, so it's good to see that department really picking it up and running with it. Okay, we are still in the initial stage. We are still evaluating multiple solutions, including Servam. I think there's some discussion going on with them. Okay, so these two business areas, legal, regulatory, and contact center, they have started adopting AI in their business process itself, Gen AI. So, but I believe there is a lot more use cases, and I feel very confident that next year we'll pick up some more. Okay, so that's how I see the from my point of view. Thanks.
Right. Gopal.
Yeah. Just to add to what Kamal is saying, what I've been seeing in the last 1 year is adoption has been increasing. For example, companies which are digital first. For example, we have a company which is into online education. They have launched a 24/7 AI tutor. They're doing summarization of whatever content using Gen AI to provide refreshing material to the students. So all that is happening at scale. So that's one thing digital first companies are doing, like even startups. Like, for example, there's a startup that we were interacting with, which is a radiology startup. But apart from the regular radiology related AI, what they're also doing is using Gen AI to summarize or to come up with the say MRI assess, based on what the MRI images, they need to write out something, right? So they're using Gen AI to write it, and then the radiologist will check it out and sign it, right? So that they're trying to do it. They're doing it already. It's happening at scale. So every digital first company has figured out how to use Gen AI in some fashion or the other. So that's, I think, happening more and more. The larger companies, like Kamal said, is still trying to figure out how to use it, where to use it, and they're probably just working with startups to do it at the periphery. I don't think, at least I haven't seen too much impact happening on that front. On the education side, in our universities, Alok and I did a session almost 7-8 months back for one of our universities. What we've seen now is faculty is using Gen AI, Copilot, etc., quite a lot for content creation, for even for helping in research. So that adoption is increased on the faculty side. So that's an interesting thing. Also, in 3 of our universities, there's been a Gen AI based initiative kicked off, saying what should us, overall, how should we look at Gen AI? How should we adopt Gen AI into universities? What should we do? So there's a lot of seriousness with a lot of senior faculty working on that to figure out what they should be doing going forward. So that's the good news, I would say, that people are kind of taking this seriously. So overall, that's my quick summary. I would 2025, I think the adoption, especially among digital first companies, will just keep increasing. There's no question about that. In India, I'm talking all about in India. The other companies, I think it'll be a little bit slower, but will start happening. That's my quick sense. And one thing I just want to add to what Omkar and others said, that and Santosh said, agentic AI. I know, Omkar, you seem a little skeptical, but I think especially in certain industries like BPM, it is going to have a huge impact, because you can reproduce whatever uh, BPM outsourcing thing which with people doing can be replicated to a large extent using agents. So I think it is going to have a tremendous impact, at least in that particular use case that I'm familiar with. And so yeah, that's my quick summary, Alok.
Right. Kamal, you talked about applications in legal. Renu, would you like to talk about your experience and what you people are doing?
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I am a lawyer. I have a law firm in the litigation space, and I mean, the interest here is the legal tech company that I have, and my co-founder is also here, Satish. I don't have a prediction, but I have a wish list, I would say. I mean, my wish list really is to see some benchmark on accuracy in the LLM space. In the legal domain, I mean, everybody says that we're a legal tech company. We can summarize, we can generate, a timeline, but there's no benchmark to test it with except the human, lawyer who we say, okay, you look at it. Is it a good enough product, as generated by the human lawyer? So I think that is one space I don't see anybody exploring, and it's kind of baffling why. So the legal benchmark is my wish list that people should work on it. And second, I think is the limitation on accuracy that I think people talked about. The LLMs are plateauing. On the technical side, I don't know what's the solution to that, but we're seeing low adoption rate of legal tech. Contract review has a high adoption rate. So companies and law firms which work in transaction space, they're happy to use tech to summarize big contracts, to read a summary, to get a paraphrased clause and all of those things. But as the minute it comes to the litigation court space, we're seeing a very poor adoption rate. I think we're probably 5 years away from litigation lawyers becoming happy about using it. And personally, I feel the challenge is that there's no benchmark. I mean, when I meet a user and I give a demo and I tell them that "Look, this is good enough and this is 95% accurate," that's only an internal, testing some parameters, but there's no benchmark. So that's a struggle and my wish list. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, the Satish here. I just add my view towards it, right? Like on the future of this one, like what Renu told, like yeah, legal benchmarking is something which is very rare to find. That's something which will, I believe, it will improve on 2025. But there's also one interesting thing which is changing in legal, which I want to add. People are moving away a lot from a chatbot and they are going to editor kind of a workspace. They want to work together with AI rather than asking questions and doing it. Like drafting is good example I'm seeing. Previously, it used to like give me a bail application draft or something they used to ask. Now they have a draft actually or something, and then on top of it, they want to add some review it, give review to it, improve on it. So it's going to be a collaborative space. Like coding already has it, like Windsurf or Cursor. Everybody has that kind of an interface. Now legal is picking it up. Again, like it's not going to be like one year. I'm not seeing anything which is going to happen drastically. But chatbots are going to go away where I see more and more editors coming in the space. And that's where I see agentic UI coming in the space more. Just my thought on it.
Interesting. Adarsh?
Oh, thank you. From my perspective, I see two things which I would like to see more of involvement happening. One is on the policy front. Uh, we have had national air policy for a while now, and we saw some numbers released to the parliament in the last couple of weeks on how much of money has been allocated as outlay for that. But I think more needs to be done in a much more faster and agile manner. This is not something that we can wait for things to happen, because the money that we don't spend in AI is perhaps the money that we should be spending in somewhere else. And unfortunately, unlike other technologies and other industry evolution, this is not something that we can sit out. We should be in a position to work on our national priorities and on the AI priorities at the same time. That's one. We have seen NASCOM release some guideline on how developers should be using AI at work for developing code a couple of weeks ago. But I think at companies level, perhaps they should be in a position to start releasing statements where in which they are talking about how they are using AI responsibly to create trustworthy AI products and services. Saying that, going forward, I do believe that two things will be critical mountain for any company operating in this space, especially if they are a newcomer to overcome. One is the cost of compute. Unless we are able to bring down the cost of compute significantly, maybe edge compute to some level, or to bring it down even further. I'm not so sure how much of scalable, when I'm saying scalable by users, how much we are, I'm not so sure how we'll be able to hit a million users or a million adopters of AI for daily usage. It's going to happen. Because at some point of time, the cost is going to get transferred to the user. Second thing is the data. The early movers had the advantage of already sitting with a mountain of data to start with, and before regulation started or policy guidelines started catching up, or preventing them to use it any further. So this will be a serious chicken neck for any new company who is going to enter this space. So data will become a significant decider as to how good or bad your model, or how adopted your model is going to be. And the last thing I feel is that as a country, we should focus a bit on developing on how, I mean, having intelligence algorithms that we can use. It is going to be a strategic asset going forward. We cannot be dependent on models developed outside the country for our purpose. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Jay, now your turn.
Okay. So I think when we started the year, I think there was this obviously this major hope that AI and at least with the LLMs and others, it would pervade every space. And then of course there were a few skeptics who were sort of saying that okay, it's not there yet. And I think, as expected, we are somewhere in the middle, as always. I think in some areas, I think there's a lot of, I do see, at least in the space of climate and energy, I think, Google just put out this, just in December, they put out this AI forecasting, weather forecasting system, and it's supposed to be almost 95 to 97% as accurate as the other traditional models, which is incredible, right? And I can see opportunities in those kinds of areas, but of course, the costs associated are also very high, and I think that is a huge thing. So of course, that's a big area. The second one is in the same space that we are working in. We are collecting a lot of data from various sources, and I think this is where the proliferation of AI models, or even these agentic models, can make a huge difference. Now, we are not seeing that today, but I actually see that as an opportunity in the coming year. That said, flipping to the aspect on regulation, I think with AI starting to make its way into various processes, various industries, there will be a call for some sort of, I would say, I wouldn't call it regulation, but there will be some need for some oversight on some of these things. And whether it will be done through a ministry or done through a czar or something of that sort, we'll have to see. And I think this is where our group could probably, make an impact by trying to figure out what that governance structure maybe should be, and such that the benefits of AI are uh, reaching most of the people at the same time. We take the perils away from that. So I think that's the sort of the broad thing. I think we are internally, I will say, we've been struggling with, as Kamal said, that there's a lot of content coming out of AI, and a lot of in our discipline, being able to write is a very big thing. Now, suddenly, what's going to happen if you are able to look at AI? And there are two parts to this. Of course, we do an internal check to see whether people's writing coming in is AI generated. But then there's an error rate to that too, right? So there are people who don't use AI, and then it comes out and it says, no, no, this is AI generated. So now we have to figure out a way to solve that. At the same time, it is so we have actually reached an internal state where we have an internal number that says that if the number is greater than this, then we will ask the person to rewrite. If it is below this number, then we'll be okay. And that number is a secret within the organization so that people don't game that either. And the idea is that we do want people to take the benefits of good writing, but at the same time, not lose that skill. I mean, I don't think any of us remember phone numbers anymore. And I remember we used to remember almost 20 of them. So, but at the same time, I think ability to communicate, put in an idea, a thought, and express it in a way that people will understand is very important. Now, if you use an AI to help you start the journey and take you there, then that's fine. But I don't want AI to be completely, you feed in something, you get it out, you copy paste and use it. And I think that is unfortunate. So I think maybe on emails it helps, but on documents we have to be a little bit careful, because we are saying that this is our thoughts and ideas, and that's where we are. So I will say that. So I'm actually quite hopeful for the coming year. We will try to Rajesh is not here, but we are trying to build some tools internally also to help with the kind of work that we do in terms of the research, putting things together. We have a lot of documents already, so we're trying to see how we can create a system by which it helps us. And then I think by and large, we are in the knowledge industry, right? So how do we capture this knowledge and make it available to everyone? I think from that space, we are very keen to look into that. So I'm actually quite hopeful, but I will be spending a little time looking into this issue about governance and thinking about what are the ways in which we can think about it going forward.
Right. Raj, you are working with a lot of enterprises. What is it that you are seeing in terms of their asks and demands, and what solutions are they adopting?
Hi, I'm outside, so if there's a lot of noise, let me know. I'll make myself back again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I think most of the points covered earlier are reflective of what clients are asking for. In the US market, there is a strong feeling that agentic AI will allow them to use labor arbitrage to save a lot of costs. And what we're seeing is the initial pilots are not leading to a lot of savings per se, but as the technology kind of stabilizes and people figure out the most economic way of doing things, and some of this could include the falling costs of compute for the similar kind of infrastructure. Then we think that next year, 2025, 2026, this labor arbitrage will become a real thing, and people will start capitalizing on it by using AI. I think SaaS companies have a lot to lose from the growth of AI, because many of the SaaS companies are approaching it as a revenue growth opportunity, not as a market protection opportunity, which they should be looking at. So if you look at Salesforce and Mark Benioff, he's thinking, oh, I get a new revenue stream which is going to be usage based. But in reality, this AI agents are going to eat into their core revenue. So they need to be really thinking in the right way. I think some companies in the content generation space, companies are thinking of it that way. So Adobe, Canvas, etc., offer all these AI features almost free on top of their paid features. So you'll see agentic AI in pockets coming out and becoming more popular. I think increasingly voice agents for outbound calls in the US are going to AI. So voice agents are becoming popular in English language. In the Indian market, what we are seeing is that um, uh, in the call center space, analyzing call center quality, using voice agents for outbound calls. These are topics where AI is going to become more popular. But right now, companies are even at the stage where they have to fully exploit, basic concepts like chatbots and RAG pipelines and those kinds of things, which I think in 2025 will penetrate the market further. That's what I see in the corporate space.
Great. I want to switch the discussion to India. We've seen all the development happening largely from the US, but we haven't heard of any big development coming in from India. And the only area which most companies seem to be working on and trying to solve is the language thing, right? So whether it is the Bhashini project or some of the other startups, they're all wanting to work on just solving for the language problem, but no other development. Is anybody seeing any significant development of some AI solutions from India? And more importantly, as a group, how can we go and work towards accelerating it? We are ending up becoming users again of international products. Shashi, you want to kick off?
Well, I can't talk about stealth mode products, but I think from an Indian standpoint, language is a big problem. So it's logical that a lot of the effort is on the language front. But I wouldn't be surprised if research and some of that domain throws up something interesting. So I think that is one possibility. A lot more work will obviously happen on the data side, since clearly a large part of our data ecosystem is either not digitalized, it's not publicly accessible, it is not organized, structured, AI usable or AI friendly. So I think a lot more activity perhaps will happen on that front. So these are two areas. I thought it was very interesting the point on benchmarking was brought out, because that would be relevant to other domains as well, not just legal, right? How do you assess the quality of output that AI is giving, and how do you benchmark it? Maybe that's another opportunity area, apart from data enrichment and making data accessible to AI, would be to have people with the necessary domain knowledge
Right.
to be able to assess the quality or the output of AI and benchmark it as well.
In subjective areas, especially.
Yeah, subject. So my sense is that while the jobs threat is relevant to very low skill or highly commoditized skills, I think wherever there is deep domain knowledge, I think you will still have the ability to be one up on AI, because unless you have that deep domain knowledge, you cannot, one, train the models, you can't enrich the data, and two, you can't even certify or validate what kind of output is being generated. So I think perhaps that is one way to look at the jobs threat, is building pools of deep domain knowledge experts who are able to connect the dots, who are able to perform these tasks which require that sophistication and that level of understanding of the domains. I think from a regulatory standpoint, we're still not much has happened, right? The data rules which were supposed to come have still not come. There's a lot of talk on what India must be doing on regulatory front, but I haven't really seen anything much happen there on that front. I think this question still remains whether we should be users of technology created somewhere, foundational technology created elsewhere, or should we be creating foundational technology ourselves. I don't think that debate has been resolved or will likely be resolved anytime soon, given where we are as a tech ecosystem in India. I'm hopeful someone will just come up with something disruptive and then change that that entire debate. So let's remain optimistic.
Great. Let me also take the opportunity to introduce Ramanand and Pranav Gupta from CPRG. They're attending our first meeting. So would you like to share some perspective from your policy group, what trends you're seeing, and is there anything in the works which the government might have which could be helpful in promoting the industry?
So one thing that, and it just struck me based on the conversation today, and this is something that will be coming out with very soon, is that we are working on a report on state of AI in India, wherein the idea is to look at levels of AI, not innovation, but levels of AI adoption across various fields and sectors, and trying to understand, like at the base level in everyday professional life, how much is, what is the prevalence of AI use and adoption. So that is something that we've just that report will be released next week onwards. We'll start releasing these papers across various sectors. We've covered about 10 to 12 major sectors of the economy, and spoken to professionals at the ground level and trying to understand everyday use. So I think, because I think, and broadly I can share with you some snippet of what we are finding. Like, for example, ma'am spoke earlier about the legal sector, and I think that is also something similar to what we are finding, that in terms of everyday use, while there might be a lot of innovative tools, but I think the propensity to pay for and subscribe to new tools is very limited. And at the base level, what people are mostly using it for is essentially ChatGPT or any other generative AI tool for basic everyday tasks. And I think that, and I think from that to adopting proper frameworks or proper tools, is, I think that is going to be a challenge. But one industry, for instance, where there is rapid adoption is, say, for example, tourism, where there are a lot of tools at the back end that companies are using. Even hotels are talking about using a lot of tools for billing or market analysis, inventory management, staff management, etc. HR, we're seeing like a lot of tools that at the back end that not only recruiting companies, but even HR firms, HR divisions within firms are using. But in everyday professional life, I think the adoption is still, despite availability of various tools, I think adoption still remains limited.
Ramananji, would you like to share some thoughts?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Alok sir, Sachi sir, for giving opportunity to share something about CPRG. So in CPRG, our focus on the interface of society and technology, how the AI and other emerging technology is going to shape the basic nature of the society. We are trying to understand that aspect, and as Pranav shared the thought, we are going to launch a comprehensive AI report on that to cover that aspect. So we are covering that thing only, and our basic idea is either it's AI or 3D printing or other emerging technology. They are going to change the basic nature of the society, basic nature of the engagement of the society. So we are more interested in that part, and as a policy think tank, we are just trying to understand the magnitude and kind of the scale of the impact, and how as a society and how as a policy group, or how we can sensitize even the government to prepare themselves. So we are only covering data. Thank you.
Right, thanks. I missed out Ashwin. So Ashwin, you have been very quiet for a change today. Here's your chance.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I think I've been trying to figure out which are the people or industries that use generative AI. And one of the spaces that I've seen, I have a relative, a cousin who is actually a movie producer, Telugu movies banata hai wo. And this was almost 6 months ago. And he was telling me when he had come that the film industry, and he knows quite a few director of photography is what these guys are called, DOPs, who are massively adopting Midjourney, and he kind of walked me through the benefits that they have. A typical Indian movie has about 100 odd settings and scenes, and in order to get the actors to understand a set and a scene and how the people have to enter, walk, etc., etc., the DOP has to communicate this to the art director. The art director makes a bunch of diagrams, and then there's a lot of back and forth, and finally they agree, and then it goes to the actors. And this process, where a typical scene takes about 7 to 15 days, has come down, according to this guy of mine, using Midjourney, to a bunch of minutes. And there is phenomenal advantages that these guys are seeing in terms of reduction in total film producing time, and it allows them a bunch of downstream benefits in terms of working through schedules of actors as well. And so I think in the movie industry, which is actually a larger use case of AI being adopted currently in the advertising industry. It's being adopted fairly heavily in the advertising industry in terms of writing copy, first cut, because there's a lot of scratch work that gets done out there. This is a fantastic tool to engage in subjective discussions with people, where the transmission of information itself is subjective, from the brief of the agent to from the brief of the client to the agency, and their outputs and so on. So I think I've seen quite a lot of adoption, and I expect a lot of adoption to happen in this place, especially with, we don't have access, I think, in India to VO2, but it's just a matter of time. So that's one place. The other place that I'm seeing huge adoption of generative AI, especially, is in the coding space. Been talking to a bunch of friends of mine, people who have worked in my teams across different points in time, and it's very clear, even in the last, especially in the last 6 months, there's a dramatic improvement in the kind of output that, in the quality of the output, and the accuracy of, let's say, the coding that comes out, of the programming that comes out. I remember 6 months ago, a couple of people were saying that the kind of code quality is that of a 12th standard guy. And today, the kind of code quality that comes out is very, very high quality, which allows them to really revisit the entire entry layer of software programmers, is what at least I'm hearing a few people say, that the I mean, you will not have an entry level of people doing programming. You'll straight away move into code review and start to sort of work on that, and that has possible implications in terms of jobs and so on. Third place, I'm seeing AI, at least higher levels of adoption in the kind of conversations I'm having and whatever research I'm doing by talking to people, is in the case of the pharma industry. So I know a couple of people here who are in the drug manufacturing space, and I mean, of course, this is a little early, but I will just say it as a messenger rather than adding any weight to it. But there seems to be an emergent belief that one of the places where India can make a difference is in pharma, which has classically been, we've been making generics as an industry, but the playing field of research has got leveled in terms of being able to identify which proteins can affect which disease better, and the kind of computational power that is required has come down dramatically. And so that's another place where I see huge opportunities, possibly at an India specific thing. Lastly, I mean, I agree with Omkar. I mean, I think this whole thing on agents, from whatever little I've studied and learned, some of the testing use cases. How do you test an API that will modify itself, and the kind of magnification of downstream errors that will result in uh, in such situations where an API is being written real time, and therefore, if there's an error and the API is being written by an agent real time, that error is going to magnify, and the consequence of such error magnification is going to be fairly severe, and it's going to, so I think we're some time away from agentic AI really kind of having a foothold in terms of adoption. Another area is also within agentic AI that at least I'm starting to see in research is something which I call it completeness of information. Essentially, what human beings, or machine learning AI tools do is kind of fill in the blanks. Human beings have one mechanism of filling in the blanks. These tools have a different mechanism of filling the blanks, and therefore making extrapolations after filling in the blanks. The challenge is that a human being system knows intuitively what blanks can't be filled, but an AI system is compelled to fill those blanks and generate outcomes. I mean, the simpler term for that is hallucinations, but these two trends of lacking evaluations and magnification of errors makes agentic AI a little wary for large-scale adoption. So those are some of the thoughts that I have right now.
Great. We'll spend the last 10 minutes very quickly going around the group and putting down some specifics for ourselves. What can we do as a group going forward over the next year, which can help AI adoption and development in India? So just 1-2 liners would be great. Omkar, always the first one.
You're on mute, Omkar.
Yeah. So one piece that I have been, trying to do since the beginning of this particular group is demystifying the technology as much as possible. So that what happens is that when you start using big words, it tends to, sound mysterious, but actually in practical, it does not have any what do you say, any implication. So I think one thing that we need to do is probably bring down the complexity of the technology in terms of at least like there are a number of papers which are being published. If we are able to bring them down to a very consumable level so that those could be distributed to a higher audience, that would have a magnifying effect. So that is something that we should start about thinking, because we have huge untapped potential, and I think something like this would be extremely useful in the path going forward pathway.
Good suggestion. Others, always full of ideas.
So I've been working on creating some statements that companies can endorse and declare, demonstrating how responsibly they are using AI technologies to build products and services. So I hope that sometime the last quarter of this fiscal, I should be in a position to release it to public for general adoption of that. So that is something that I'm quite excited about. Second thing is that I would like to see us as a team doing a lot more on that data tone project, because wherever I've been having conversations with people are quite curious and excited and skeptical as well as how we are going to pull that out, because that is clearly the biggest bottleneck that is going to happen from an Indian context, whether we are able to put a framework and create an ecosystem together where in which the data can be used for Indians.
Right.
So these are things that I'll be able.
Gopal?
Yeah. So I think one of the things we should do, I mean, over the last 1 year, we have some really good experts in the group. A lot of good stuff is coming out in terms of weekly newsletters. Alok, thanks to you. I think there's a lot of stuff that we have now built. So we should, I think, in my view, start engaging with other forums and other areas more regularly. So that's as AI4India. So that's one thing we should do more often, so that there'll be more exchange of ideas. So that's what I would suggest as one thing to do. And we should have more regular sessions. Like I think the last 1 month has been great with so many people coming and giving Friday talks. I think we should continue that in more. So that's another thing I would recommend that we do, Alok.
Right. Jay?
Yeah, so there are two things. I mean, one is, of course, the governance aspect that I'm sort of going to try to push forward. I think we will definitely do that. I'm actually quite excited about the data done thing. I think that is going to be an interesting place. And if we can manage to get a critical mass and then be able to come up with things, that would be really useful. So just so you know, I mean, we are happy to start, working with anyone here on trying to put together thought pieces or policy briefs or anything of that sort. And then we will of course be engaging with various ministries and seeing what is their appetite for the kind of AI that we are seeing, and maybe hopefully we are, AI4India could become the face for some of these things. So I'm fairly hopeful, like I mentioned in my uh, opening remark, and I think we will continue working on some of these aspects, and especially on the governance part, we're going to spend a little time and effort on that.
Okay, so just a quick update on Datadan. We are in the process of developing a portal. We have a team which Shashi had introduced working out of Hyderabad, and we should have it up and running the latest by end of January. So that's good. One thing I will ask everyone is please keep creating and sending in content. And even if we send pointers, then we have our agency who can write it down and you can vet it. But the more the content, because we are talking about demystifying, simplifying, advocating and so on, and therefore content is good. Many of you have promised but not delivered so far. So maybe we need to get a little more persuasive in the going forward and the next year. Ashwin, you had raised your hand.
No, I was just, I was trying to figure out. I put a thumbs up for what Gopal is saying, and I think that's something which I'd like to take up and see what I can do. Which is, I also find those Friday meetings, which is the phrase that he used of entrepreneurs coming and talking about their companies. Raj spoke about it. There's a guy from Artha, I think Vitra, I forget the name, but would spoken about his company. I think those are very educative sessions to get a sense of the real world applications and challenges. So I'll see what I can do in terms of reaching out to people and getting them to come here and talk to us regularly.
Fantastic. Raj?
Yeah. So in terms of a group, I think one of the things this year that we need to probably achieve is, this data then initiative is something that I think we have a head start over many of the other folks in the industry and even in the governmental group. I see similar initiatives coming out with Bashani and India AI announcing similar kind of initiatives. So I think this year we'll have to figure out how do we work with these other agencies who are also in the same space. India AI has 10,500 crores that they are going to be spending this year. They are in the process of finalizing their initiatives. They're in the process of hiring senior folks. So we'll have to reach out to them and figure out how is it that we can work together with them, because there's no point in three agencies or three groups doing the same thing. Rather than, I think all three could collaborate, India AI, People Plus AI, and ourselves, and achieve much more, and figure out, okay, what is the niche that they want to operate in? What is the niche that we can operate in? What are the areas where we can all collaborate and put it forward? I think that will be critical so that there are not multiple people doing the same thing.
Right, good point. Kamal?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
See, I was listening to good ideas, right? So, coming from the industry, I feel as a group, probably we can also think of how we can drive adoption of certain use cases. Okay. And the idea that I was, going through my mind last few days is, can we take, let's say, specific use cases and organize a discussion around that? Okay. So, let's say, generative AI in legal or in, contact center, invite probably potential users, right, or people who are experimenting with it. Because what I see is, when I'm going out and looking for such experience, most of the time it's loaded with conflict of interest, right? People are trying to sell what they already have. Okay. And consultants will come and say, hey, everything is possible because they want that contract. Okay. So just creating as a neutral party, neutral group of people, creating that forum where let's say few guys come together, talk about it, what's possible, what's not possible. I think, it will drive the adoption, and that is what will lead to our success also as a group.
Great. Very interesting. Santosh?
Yeah, sure. So, I think 2 points. I think what Raj mentioned, right? Collaborating with other AI initiatives. I think that would be a great thing to take up this year. And on the data side, right? See, basically, when we look back, what is the shortcoming of the current LLMs? We understand that it's actually a good a generic tool, but when it comes to specific domains, there is actually an issue of accuracy and consistency, right? And that is what is preventing us from building a reliable agent system as well. You cannot fire the right agent or control the workflow based on a LLM response. It's you're actually you need some human intervention coming in somewhere because of the consistency and accuracy issue. So when we are building models for India, can we try to circumvent that? Can we say that, hey, while collecting Indic languages data, can we focus on specific verticals as well? For example, agriculture, right? Or maybe rural banking or healthcare, things like that. So basically, the outcome of maybe a Hindi LLM, right, maybe much better in that particular domain, and the adoption can be much better. So trying to see that while we collect data, Indian language data, let us actually try to structure it by vertical and try to encourage collection of data, in those domains, so that we can actually have a very domain specific model coming out, which may perform better than a Meta or any other model.
Well, that's a good point. Actually, we had planned it some time earlier this year, but somehow we lost track of that. We can revive that discussion. Shashi, last words?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of good ideas. Clearly, we have vastly exceeded expectations in terms of what we could have done as a group. I think we have really come along. Data done, I take the feedback, whether this is conflicting or are there duplication efforts. I think our thought process is clear, right? Where there is a gap, we'll step in. But where others are able to, fill the gap with far greater resources, I think we'll amplify it, we'll support those efforts. So in that sense, I don't see any potential for conflict. But yes, what Gopal said, I think we need to engage more with other forums and other groups. So I think we need to do that this evening.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We are at
Thanks.
the end of our time, and a very interesting discussion. We'll put out some notes, and hopefully this recording will be editable so that we could put out a viable video out there. But great, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
Happy New Year, guys. Have a good break if you have a break.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.